Good evening. It's an honour to be here with Gok. This evening is going to be fun. We're going to explore loads of different areas. I'm going to push Gok on some areas that he probably doesn't want to go down, and then we'll open it up after about 25 minutes. And then we'll open it up after about 25 minutes, and then it's your opportunity to ask questions. What I'll do is we'll take about 2 or 3 questions at a time, and then we'll let Gok answer them. Hello.
Oh, bloody hell. Now it's late, but we're all knackered. Energy into it.
So I think, first of all, before we start, we've got a little film to watch.
Fabulous. I have no idea what you're going to show. Is it Home Alone? And in the final section, I want you to get down to the end, I want you to take off your robe, and I want you to be naked on this stage. Naked.
It's Johnny!
Just a little cheap up and down. Can I ask you, how do you feel about your chest now? Because you really didn't like it last week when I first met you. So how do you feel now in this outfit?
Really, really comfortable, and I think it's really flattering my figure.
You know where your clothes are from, but who actually makes them?
Gok's taking off.
Come with me to China and meet the people who produce the clothes you wear every day.
He's going back to his roots.
Welcome to China.
To discover where his fashion fix really begins.
And it's all done by hand. Every single stage.
And a little bit of Gok history.
Over the years, I've got, more and more in love with being Asian, and I'm so proud to be Asian. It's quite nice to be a voice for the Asian community, and writing this cookbook for me is another reason, because it allows me to really talk about my roots and talk about where I'm from and those smells, and that sounded terrible, didn't it?
Where did that come from, that kind of like that openness with when did you first realise you could talk to him in that way and it was okay?
What I've always done is I've always used a bit of humour to break the ice. I've always been really overly friendly. I'm very tactile anyway.
And women never minded you touching them because you pretend to be gay. So you can kind of get away with that.
Like so many obese teens, I began seriously putting on weight at a young age. By the time I was 11, my size was causing me problems at school.
For the last 5 years, I've been helping women and the occasional man with their body hatred and confidence issues. But now, it's the turn of the teens.
As Vice-Chancellor, I exercise the authority of Senate and confer the award of Doctor of the University Honoris Causa on Mr. Gok Wan.
To receive the honorary doctorate today, I am so proud. It is literally beaming out of every part of my body.
So I'm not sure those colours went at the end, did they?
I hated that gown. I looked ridiculous. I looked like a big chip. It's absolutely ridiculous. Well, yeah.
So, Gok, you moved from fashion, television, fashion, and you use both of those now. You're a very accomplished television presenter, both in terms of the fashion programmes you do, but also tackling some of the social issues. And I want to address some of those social issues to begin with.
Okay.
Grow up in Leicester, you've got a family in terms of your mum and your dad, and you go to a local school. How was that?
Primary school. Do you know what? Primary school was great. I loved primary school. It was safe. My brother and sister was there. There's only a year between me and my brother. So it was a very, very safe place to be. I loved school. I loved playing. I quite like education. I quite liked education. And so yes, it was a good place. Later on, it wasn't as good. Later on, I didn't get on with education. But at that age, everything was exciting and brilliant. And I also come from a really close family. So my mum and dad always made sure that we made the most of our lives, and being so close to them, everything felt very safe. I use that word because that really does, I suppose it's the best word that I can use to really explain the first 10 years of my life.
But things got a bit difficult after that, didn't they? Whereas you moved into secondary school, you started facing elements of being bullied. Certainly your weight was a big issue for you.
Yeah, do you know what? It was a tough place. Leicester back then, in 1902, because I'm so old, But back then, Leicester was a really hard place. I come from a place called Beaumont Leeds. I don't know if any of you know that. It's a tough county estate. We were one of the only Asian families on the estate back then, and also my mum's English as well, so mixed-race Asian. Also, I was very fat, and so was my brother, and so was my sister, and I, probably by about 10 or 11, had developed my camp genes. So I was fat, half Chinese, camp. Yeah, it was pretty fun, as you can imagine. And so it was a tough place, it was a really tough place. The secondary school came, and whereas I was so safe, and I was, like I said before, and it felt great, secondary school wasn't as safe. All of a sudden I had to be a young adult, and all of a sudden everyone that I thought was a potential friend became a potential enemy. And
that bullying became quite serious for you.
Yeah, it was hard. It was emotional warfare, is how I describe it. When I wrote about it in 2009, for the first time, I'd never really discussed it with anyone. But it wasn't your Hollywood-style bullying. So it wasn't, putting off someone's backpack or putting their head down the toilet and that kind of thing, which is horrendous and awful.
It was the words.
It was words. It was psychological. It was really tough. When you're told that you're ugly or stupid or fat or queer or camp or a faggot, when you're told repeatedly, you start believing it. And so I was brainwashed into believing that I was all those things.
Did you keep it to yourself? Was that something you were able to share with your parents?
Yeah. Well, my parents owned a restaurant, and so they worked really, really hard. And the restaurant was their life. I mean, it provided us with a home. It also provided us with jobs. And it had to be their first priority in my eyes. That's how I saw it. Of course, as being an adult now, hindsight, I knew that we were their first priority, but I didn't want to take their attention away from them running the business. And so I kept it to myself. And what I did is, instead of being very quiet and hiding and running away from the bullies, I became big and loud and gregarious. And I used my size, my physical presence, and also my very big voice to attack them, to attack back at them, basically. And I did that up until I was about 13, and then became really naughty, and then got kicked out of school, basically.
And what did you do?
I went on an extended work experience. That's what they called it. So my parents had this restaurant, and instead of turning around and saying, look, you're just too naughty or too bad or too disruptive at school, we can't have you here, they said, go and work for your dad, go and fry prawn crackers. And so at the age of, I was nearly 15 when I left school, so with no GCSEs and nothing at all, I just kind of walked away without anything, without friends. Went back to the restaurant and started my adult life really young. I think most people would probably do that by 18 or 19. I was just turning 15, and I was all of a sudden an adult and had to have very big adult conversations with myself. Plus I was coming out, plus I'd just become very aware of the world, and also how dangerous it could be. In my eyes, that's how it felt.
And how difficult was that? I mean, how difficult conversation was that with your parents? Did they have an idea?
Do you know what? I don't remember that conversation at all. And I don't know whether I want to have that conversation with my parents now, because everything's kind of turned out all right. I think sometimes when you...
Have they ever had that conversation with you?
No, never. I've never spoken about that. When I wrote my autobiography in 2009, I had to have lots of conversations with my parents because a lot of stuff we hadn't ever spoken about. And so coming out later on, which I'm sure we'll talk about, anorexia, being fat, being mixed race, all that stuff, I spoke to them about that. But actually that part of my life, leaving school so young, or being thrown out of school so young, it's not a conversation that I need to have with them because it doesn't involve them. It wasn't their fault. There's nothing they could have done about it. It was something that I created for myself. And so actually, they allowed me to be that adult and for that to happen. They didn't fight for it.
So age 15, you wanted to become an actor?
Age 15, so I'd done a couple of school plays, and I played Dandini in Cinderella in the school play, and I'd also played the sheriff in the Really Wild West show. And I loved it. I loved being on stage. I thought then I could sing, and I still can't sing. And I just loved being on stage. And the only thing that I thought that I could be good at would be acting. And it wasn't until I was probably about 18 or 19 years old that I realised the reason why I really wanted to be an actor wasn't because I wanted to be an actor, it was because I wanted to have the access to a tool that I could hide behind. I could become different characters. I could be a sheriff, or I could be a pope, or I could be a bar wench. I could be anyone, as long as I wasn't being me. And that, in my mind, felt like a really, I'm going to use the word again, safe place that I could go to. Which actually, when you think about it, for a 15-year-old boy with no qualifications that hated school, that had been truant for years, it's quite clever. Like, it was quite a clever thing to do.
There was an element of escapism, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is good.
College is good. So yeah, so basically all this crap happens for years and years and years and years. Just to cut a very short, a long story short, all this bad stuff happens, and I'm in with the wrong crowd, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here that recognise these kind of stories. You're in with the wrong crowd, you've got no direction, you don't have very much self-respect, you have no idea at all.
Did you have many friends at this stage?
I had friends, but they were all friends away from the school.
Right.
So they're friends that I collected or met, in a lot of them in very, not the best circles, put it that way. And so I had these people around me. So actually it was quite a lonely place to be, it was quite isolating, but I still had my family. And that's the most important thing. And throughout this entire story, my family always were there for me. And I would go away and be idiotic or stupid or brilliant or whatever I was doing, and I'd always come back and the family were always there. But I had done telesales and tried to sell double glazing and was awful. I'd worked in call centres, I'd gone and worked for my uncle in his cafe, I'd worked for my dad, I'd done every single catering job in Leicester by the time I was 17, and I still had this thing in my head, I want to be an actor, it's the only thing you can do, it's going to be the best thing you can do. And I walked into college at Charles Keene in Leicester, which is now called Leicester College, and I walked into the dance studio and walked through the studio and walked to this tiny little door with this little office inside, and there was Liz Valentine on the left and Dean McQueen on the right. I mean, you can't make this up, those fabulous names. And I stood there and I just burst into tears and said, you've got to help me, you've got to help me, I've got nowhere to go, and this is the only place. And I have no idea at all how I knew about them, how I knew about the college, how I knew about the course. And they both looked at me and I think they must have thought, you absolute mess, this 21 stone Asian, 6'1" Asian guy standing there crying his eyes out saying, I've got nowhere else to go, please help me. And they put me on a course, and it was the biggest turning point of my life, because all of a sudden I had a sense of community.
And have you spoken to them since?
Yeah, I'm still in touch with them. Yeah.
Do they remember that moment?
Yeah, they talk about it really fondly. Actually, I made it in Gox Teens. I went back and I visited the college. Or was it Too Fat Too Young? One of the shows anyway. I went back and interviewed them, and they told the story, and I'd forgotten a lot of it, but then they reminded me, it was incredible. But then they kind of took me in, and I did my first year, the BTEC first, and it was just the most incredible place that I could have been, and from having no physical confidence at all, I mean no physical confidence at all, I was jumping around a dance studio, and I was singing at the top of my voice, and I was, reciting Shakespeare, and all the, and it was just
so life started to
world.
look better.
Yeah, life was great. If my life could have stayed at 17, I would have been happy for the rest of my life. It was brilliant. And I moved out of home, and I really sorted myself and really grown, and for the first time, and genuinely the first time in my life, I had confidence. And it was the most incredible feeling ever. I felt like I could take over the world, all from being at college and meeting these new friends. And the only
what was going on in the head at the time? You still had your weight. Was that?
Yeah,
I was still.
What was going on in my head? Where was my next sausage sandwich coming from?
Right.
It was things like, my weight didn't bother me. My weight never really bothered me.
Right.
And I never really considered myself as being fat. I just considered myself as being loud and joyous and bubbly.
Right.
And that's genuinely how I saw my weight. But all of a sudden, it didn't feel enough. And I'm sure a lot of you guys would have experienced that when you're finishing your degree or finishing college. All of a sudden you start craving more. And career and ambition actually is quite addictive, I think. And I started to get quite addictive about it, and all of a sudden I wanted to be at drama school. And I was the only thing I could have done that was going to make me really happy. And I was very, very lucky that I auditioned for a place at the Central School of Speech and Drama in London to do drama and education, because I didn't feel confident enough to do the acting course, because I didn't think I was good enough. So drama and education was the next best. I'll do a slightly academic, slightly performance-based course, get into London, live there, probably work in a pizza restaurant and become a famous actor in about 6 months. That is what through, that is literally what went through my head. And that took me to London when I was 20 then.
And then what happens from there?
Just incredible. I arrived in London, got a bed sit in Kilburn, didn't know anyone in London at all, but it was fine because I was going to be Brad Pitt, and that was what was going through my head. And first day of school, I remember walking through, you had to go up these stairs at Central, and it's called the Embassy Theatre, with these old, beautiful oak doors with window panes and beautiful brass handles. It was so dramatic, and in my head, I was walking into the New York School of Performing Arts, and I was going to become Leroy, and I was going to start singing and dancing, and it was going to be amazing. And I walked in there, and we had to meet our group in the reception area, and I stood there, and I was wearing a black sheepskin John Richmond waistcoat with a black top underneath, a pair of black flared jeans, and massive wedged boots. It was very fashionable at the time. And I remember standing there, and I literally looked like Hagrid in comparison to everyone else. I was an enormous mass of sheepskin. And I looked around me, and I couldn't quite work out why everyone was white. Why everyone had blonde hair and blue eyes, and everyone was about as thin as my top lip, and beautiful, and they all spoke like this, and everything was like amazing. and I stood there with this like slightly Midlands camp, yeah right, looking like Hagrid, but you know, it was fine. And then as everyone started talking to each other, and I remember some of the conversations were, so where did you holiday this year? And I was thinking, I've been on holiday for years. And it was literally like that, and that was, I had that moment, I suddenly thought, fuck, what has happened? Where am I? This is not Charles Keane, this is not college. I don't feel happy, I don't feel confident, I don't feel brilliant, I feel ridiculous, I just shouldn't be here at all. And we started the course, and that feeling never left me, unfortunately. It stayed, and the longer I was there, the longer I felt like an outcast, the longer I missed Leicester.
For people to follow. And I think, you know, having spent the evening with you, and I'm sure people here will join me in agreeing that your life that you've lived has inspired. It's inspired people because you've been at times at the deepest, darkest areas you can possibly go. You went to the positions where you were bullied, where you suffered through your coming out, through skin, through loads of different elements that put you in a position, even to the degree where you felt suicidal. But you've got now into a position where you've used those negativity to a positive way. You've now got a successful brand, you've obviously a successful television, and you are an inspiring speaker. You're an inspiring speaker because I think people here can all take something away from what you've told them today. And image is so important. It gives people that confidence. So I would like to say, you know, certainly on behalf of the BCU and everybody here, I think it's been a fantastic evening, and I think we're very grateful to you.
You're very kind. I'm sorry for swearing. Thank you very much. Can I say before I run off, it's going to be tough. There's no two ways about it. It really is going to be really tough. And just when you think you can't do it anymore, let me tell you right now, there's probably about 80% more energy that you've not used. You will do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Louise Thomas and Mr. Gotwan. If it ever goes wrong, you ever feel unsuccessful, you come and work here. We have a great school of fashion, brilliant school of drama. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Very kind. And good luck, everyone, and thank you for your time. Thank you. Take care.
Next City Talk is February the 19th on leadership in business and sport. February the 19th, you're all very welcome. Thank you very much.